Pete, it's
Dave.
nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
It's been a month.
It feels like it's been more than a month, surely.
Tom, did I put enough conviction into the nice to see you bit? Do you think the viewers will buy it?
Try it again.
Okay.
Try it again.
Pete, it's nice to see you.
It's really nice to see you too.
How was your holiday?
Yeah, no, it was really nice actually. Went to see some friends. Flew down there. Actually, a bit of a strange thing happened on the plane.
Did it?
Yeah, so we're flying down on our way down to the south of France, and the pilot announces over the phone. Not the phone. What is it?
The intercom, I think you're from.
Yeah, the tannoy. Is that a tannoy they have in planes?
I don't think so.
No, the pilot announces, ladies and gentlemen, we're all going to die. So you can imagine the pandemonium that sets in at that point on the plane. Yeah, absolute sheer terror. And then he follows it up. I could have killed him. No pun intended. He said, I mean, we're all going to die at some point. Who knows when? You know, fairly philosophically. So the entire plane calms down and we all draw breath again. And then he follows it up by saying, but it's probably going to be that mountain. You've missed me, haven't you?
I've not. I'll be honest. I've not. I had a nice holiday actually, Pete. There's no joke involved. I just had a nice holiday.
That's excellent. That's excellent.
Even though the place we were staying decided to cancel a holiday 1 hour before we left.
But you still had a holiday.
Yes, we. Thanks to the company we booked through, who managed to set us up elsewhere. But
Fantastic.
Yeah, all nice and stressful. Very
But
nice.
we're back.
We are back.
We are back, and this is, I believe, not season 1, not season 2, but we are now on season 3 of the Constant Geekery podcast.
Wow. Episode 1 of season 3, and here we are. Welcome, everybody. It's been a while. We've been away from the microphones for some time, getting a bit of rest and recuperation.
You haven't made any video content for a while, I notice. You must have loads of M1 Max goodness to release.
I don't, actually.
What?
It's not that I've been away furiously filming content ready to publish it the moment that I got back.
Oh, what have you been doing?
Just taking a break, actually.
Taking a break. Okay.
Yeah, I've found that come the end of last year, I was getting quite stressed out. So I needed to take a break. But we're going to come back to that in a moment. So for those who've just tuned in, let us tell you what's on the show today before I start whinging about my personal circumstances.
Yeah.
On the show today, we're going to talk about, we'll cover a couple of news stories. We've got 2 sort of main topics today. Wanted to go through some highlights from CES, particularly Intel's launches and AMD's launches there. So that'll be interesting. And I guess our real main topic for this episode is going to be the video games scam.
Pricing scam. And it is scamtaculous.
It is. And we're going to be very cautious about what we say so that we don't get sued. But that's coming up. And I assume that we'll maybe have a Rumour Mill as well.
We will. We will have Rumour Mill.
Excellent. So all of that to come. And this year, with the podcast, if you're not into long-form content, so if you've landed on this video from the thumbnail and thought, oh my goodness, I've just noticed it's an hour long or however long it turns out to be. That's kind of what we do for the podcast. We do talk for that amount of time. But I know that not everybody is willing to listen to us talk for that amount of time.
No, if you've got any sense, you probably haven't. I've probably just insulted most of our loyal listeners there. Sorry about that.
We jest, of course. Tom's going to edit the main topic each week into a shorter form video. We're going to call that podcast snippets. And our podcast snippet this week will be focusing on that video games scam. So if you don't want to sit all through this, then you'll get a nice tight edit coming up later in the week, hopefully.
I wanted to call it podcast shorts, but the podcast doesn't really have the legs for shorts.
And it's obvious that normal service will be resumed this year. So I just wanted to talk about the M1 content because I had a few comments, not from regular subscribers, you understand, but other people who One in particular seemed to get quite upset because I'm not testing a particular piece of software that costs £300.
I'm very upset about that too.
Yeah. We don't earn enough money from YouTube to justify buying a piece of software for £300 that we're never going to use just to test it on the M1 Max so that someone can make a purchasing decision. That's kind of not what we're doing here. We had loads of suggestions of stuff to test for these computers, and we just didn't get round to doing it all because our main business, our day job, kind of got in the way. It took a lot longer than expected as well to do some of the content.
Huge amounts of time, yeah.
I just think about the video tests that we did. So we came in here and I bought... I didn't have Tom with me that day. I had son number 2, Benjamin, with me that day. So he was there all day. You and I were there all day. So that's 3-person days.
Yeah.
Not including the time it took to get all of the stuff together and make all of the test files and everything. It's probably another day's work there. So let's call that 4. I certainly then spent 2 days at least on edit. Tom spent a day on edit. That's 7 full working days to produce that one video. And you look at the number of views that it has and then compare it to, say, the video that I did last year talking about Intel versus Apple.
Yeah. Which took you how long to put together?
3 hours from start to finish.
Yeah.
And, that's had 200,000 views or something. And
just doesn't... YouTube or the algorithm doesn't reward you for putting the legwork in.
No, we don't get rewarded for quality content. The reward comes from the feedback that we get from you guys, and really do appreciate that. We do read every comment, try to reply to as many as possible. But it's completely draining to put so much work into things. And of course, when you think about it, you think, it's going to be a couple of days' work, and it ends up being so much more.
It's demoralising as well, isn't it? When you've put that much effort into it to only get that much traction.
Yeah, but I mean, let's be clear here. I'm not crying about the fact people don't want to watch the video. People will watch what they're interested in. And what I'm saying is that some of these tests just take a huge amount of time to produce, and I think that was a bit of an eye opener for me particularly. It's just that we just don't have the time to do that. So I am planning a audio test. I'm not going to do it on all of the different laptops. I'll just use mine. So I'll be doing Logic Pro on the M1 Max. I'm going to test out a few different things. I've got some headphones to test and some other things. I'll just roll all of that into one kind of episode. And we will bring out more of that kind of stuff. I know we've got a regular listener as well, and we've spoken before about getting her onto the podcast to talk about machine learning.
Yep.
So we will try and get that set up. So we will certainly cover more of this stuff. But YouTube is full of people covering these topics, and it gets to the point where, some of these guys, they must never sleep, the amount of content they're putting out. So by the time you get round to making the content, everyone's already seen a glut of it, so they're not interested in it. So that's a bit of a long explanation, but that's kind of why we've not had that run of content coming off the site. And also, I sort of hit some burnout last year, as you know, so I've just taken a month off, which has been absolutely fantastic. So I've come back fresh. So
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. So I'm going to shoot a video today. Going to do some USB 4 testing on the new Macs. So that hopefully will be up, possibly even by the time you're watching the podcast. Who knows? Sometime this week, anyway. And we've got some other interesting products to review. Erin will be back on the channel helping me with some of those things.
No, not her.
And I am also at the point as well where I think I'm ready to do a complete M1 buying guide. Original M1, M1 Pro and M1 Max.
Are you really? Interesting, I think.
Yeah. So that's coming.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's good to be back. Let's talk about the news.
Yes. So starting out, Sony can't make enough PS5s due to supply chain problems, apparently.
Kel Surprise.
Yeah.
Unobtainium, these consoles.
Yeah. There's a lot of people desperately wanting one and not being able to have one.
Have you seen one in the flesh?
No.
It's huge. These things are mahoosive.
How mahoosive?
Like big, of course, anybody who's listening to the podcast on audio-only channel won't be able to see my gestures of size there.
It's quite big. His hand's gone up some height.
Think mid-size gaming PC, and it's probably going to have a similar kind of footprint. They are large things.
They look like sort of futuristic skyscrapers, don't they?
They do. I think it's a little bit of what we would call in the UK a Marmite design. I'm not going to talk about Marmite now, but it's a love it or hate it thing, I think.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen of it, I like it, but I've not seen it in the flesh. What do you think of it?
I wouldn't have one in my living room.
Okay, fair enough.
But that's just my personal preference. Everybody's got their own preference.
So Sony were originally planning to stop production of the PS4 in 2021, but they're now going to continue to produce it through 2022. I still can't believe we're in 2022. It hasn't embedded yet. So
yeah, okay, that's.
Have you been disappointed by that, subscribers? Have you been looking forward to PS5 and then not got one? Who knows?
And is the fact that Sony's going to carry on making a PS4 a good thing? Is that something that would satisfy you? It sort of feels like a bit of an odd thing to do. The new console's out, you can't have it, but here's the old one. Yeah, okay.
It's genius.
Uber in the news ended support for their Apple Watch app.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm not surprised, to be honest. It's one of those things that on the surface of it, you think is going to be really useful because you keep your phone in your pocket, you're looking on your watch when it's coming. But I've used Uber a few times. I'm not a prolific user, but when I've been in cities, because we don't typically have service around here, but I've used it, but I tend to use my phone. But it's like a lot of things. It's like paying for stuff with your phone. It always feels awkward to use your watch. It always feels awkward to use it.
I've never done it. I think this is just a classic case of, I'm guessing nobody used it. And just because a platform exists doesn't mean that you need an app on that platform.
Correct.
Yeah.
Nobody really wanted that, did they?
Obviously not. Let's crack on with main topic number one. So CES happened.
Yes.
And there was a lot of stuff going on the social medias about this because of COVID and everything else. They basically shortened the show by one day for COVID safety.
What? That makes no sense whatsoever.
No, absolutely weird. A lot of companies didn't turn up. Some did virtual presentations and things. I'm not going to say we're the world's biggest experts on CES, but there was some interesting releases, and I'm going to kick us off with the BMW e-Ink car. Did you see that?
I did.
So this is a car that can basically change colour because it's got an e-ink paint system.
Yeah, and it does look cool.
It does.
However,
is it? Did they make it just to distract people from the ugly grille that they've put on the front of their car?
Well, I think that's a lot of effort to go to. I don't think they would consider it to be ugly. I think that's a subjective thing. I agree it's ugly. BMW seem to be doing a few Marmite designs at the moment. They either do stuff that looks absolutely amazing or pants.
I've not seen anything amazing from their designers for some time.
Yeah, but
I mean, I've had a couple of BMWs back in the day, and nice designs. But I wouldn't personally drive around with something that looks like it's got beaver teeth on the front of it. But maybe. Do you like it? Do you like it, dear subscribers? Do you enjoy looking at the BMW? I suppose actually, if you own one, that's the ultimate way to get around the design. So if you don't like it, own one, and then you can sit inside it and not look at it whilst everyone else has to.
Yeah, so maybe all BMW owners hate the outside of BMWs.
That's what it is. And they just always reverse it onto the drive, so you don't have to look at it.
Look at the backside.
Anyway, we don't want to talk about BMW. We wanted to talk about CES because there's some interesting news on chip designs and various things.
Yeah.
So let's kick this off with Intel.
Hang on a second. I just wanted to make a couple of more comments on the e-ink design.
Okay, well, yeah. Let's wind back then. Go.
Because some people are saying, this is brilliant. It's environmentally friendly.
Okay, how do you figure that?
Well, if you're in a hot country, like, say, Dubai or somewhere like that, you can change the colour of your car to white, so it makes it more efficient for keeping the inside of the car cool, for example. But I think there's another reason why people might find it attractive.
Go on.
Make a brilliant getaway car, wouldn't it?
I was thinking the same. If you could have robbed a bank.
Yeah. We're following a blue BMW down there. It's like, It's Jason Bourne will have one in his next film when he will just change. It's like turning your coat inside out and putting a cap on.
Didn't they already do this in a James Bond?
I tell you, it was the day of the Jackal. He painted his car with some kind of very loose paint and then sprayed it off
Right.
in a car park
Okay.
to change the colour of it. So
Good. Well, sorry to spoil that film / program if you haven't seen it yet. Right, shall we move on to Intel now?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Because this is indeed a tech podcast.
Okay.
Intel's Alder Lake CPUs. So they released last year desktop CPUs on Alder Lake. Intel has code names for each iteration of its processors. So the latest generation, I think this is 11th generation. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's 12th gen. Alder Lake. And Intel made a lot of gains with those CPUs that they released last year, but they only did 3 desktop CPUs as far as I'm aware, and they're kind of high-performance gaming CPUs. But certainly they're showing massive performance, really bringing it back to AMD, who had sort of stepped ahead in that arena.
Yeah.
Now we've got the rest of those desktop chips. They've all caught up.
Okay.
So what that means now is cheaper desktops with this new architecture. So what Intel have done is they've taken a leaf out of the ARM playbook and looking at what Apple are doing, and they're going with performance cores and efficiency cores on their CPU.
Okay. Bit of big little.
Yeah, that basic idea. It's not as power efficient as ARM. Let's be clear about that. But still, it is good. It is more power efficient, and that's good. That is good for the environment.
Yeah.
And because the rest of the range are now available, that means cheaper computers available and cheaper motherboard designs as well.
But do they change white in hot weather?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
You'd have to ask
Would
Intel.
they make good getaway chips?
I've no idea, and I don't know if they have beaver teeth either.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Right.
And now we've got the laptop version of Alder Lake. So Intel talked about the H series. So this is the high performance laptop chips.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently the U and the P series, which are the more, for the thin and lights, those will be coming later in the year. And again, we've got this mix of performance and efficiency cores. So we're going to see that in an Intel laptop for the first time.
Interesting. You see, that to me is a much more grown-up way with dealing with the challenge that Apple were bringing to the industry, rather than the sort of fairly childish Intel ads that we spoke about last year.
Yeah, but they did aim a few blows at Apple at CES.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
But maybe we'll talk about that another time.
Right.
I think it is great news. I mean, we've always said we like to see the fight. More competition is better for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
And, Apple have taken a big step forward. Intel is going to close the gap. AMD likewise. Someone will then take the next step forward. And they
That's progress, folks.
Yeah. And sometimes Intel are ahead. Sometimes AMD are ahead. Sometimes Apple will be ahead. And maybe there's a new player. Talk about that in a moment.
Ooh.
So, quite an interesting product launch. We've got to wait until we see the actual laptops and start seeing those in the wild. I don't imagine that we're going to be buying any of those because I don't think we've
really
got a
our
business
bag.
need for it.
And we've got to be able to justify them.
But we'll certainly have a look at the performance once it's out there, and maybe we'll cover that on the channel at some point. Might be able to borrow one to play with if any laptop manufacturers are watching.
Yeah.
Feel free to send us a sample. We'll gladly send it back to you once we finish testing.
In about 5 or 6 years.
You remember last year we spoke about Intel Arc. Now this is Arc with a C.
Mm-hmm.
Their dedicated GPU design.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a wealth of information on this at CES, from what I gather. They are, however, targeting their new dedicated graphics card to be competitive with nVidia's middle-of-the-road RTX 3070.
That's a good standard to aim for.
It is a good standard. I say middle-of-the-road. That's probably been a little bit unkind. That's a very decent card for gamers, isn't it? The 3070. So if Intel can hit that level, that could be great news because Intel has its own foundries. If Intel's planning to make those cards in its own foundries, which is by no means a given, I don't know how likely that is. But is it possible that it just puts more cards onto the market and that gives gamers a bit more choice?
Yeah, and with the shortages that are still out there, it may give them something that they can actually get.
Yeah. It's crazy. I've got in my gaming PC at home. I've got a Radeon 5700 XT.
Yeah.
And I've got another one of those cards in an eGPU.
Yeah.
And the boys use it for playing games. I used to have it connected to my Mac Pro, as long-time fans of the channel will remember. I'm pretty sure those cards were in the region of about £400 new.
Okay.
Something like that.
That's, yeah.
They're now selling on eBay those exact cards. Care to hazard? Guess?
800.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just out of interest, are they AAA sealed?
No, they're not. They're thoroughly used. Pete.
Okay. So they're not in mint condition.
They're not. See what you're doing there.
Yeah. Okay.
That all will become clear, folks.
Perhaps we should start grading graphics cards.
We'll come back to GPUs in a moment.
Can I just say the Intel does the new dedicated graphics card sounds very French, doesn't it? Because it's the Intel Arc de GPU.
That's because in my notes I put DGPU for dedicated GPU.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that and I was immediately thinking Arc de Triomphe.
Excellent. Thanks for that French lesson.
Yeah.
It's all here on the Constant Geekery
You've got
podcast.
it all. It's such a cultural mix from a tech channel.
What about AMD, Pete? What are they bringing to the party?
They are bringing Ryzen 6000 laptop CPUs. So,
okay, so at the moment we've got Ryzen 5000.
yeah. So this is 1,000 more.
Is it?
Well, that's what they're saying. It's not really though. It's a slightly upgraded version of Zen 3.
Zen 3 Plus, I believe they're calling it.
Yeah. So there's 1,000 more, and it's plus.
Okay, that sounds good. And in the real world?
It's a small performance bump and better battery life, which is always a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but we don't have data on how much better. And progress is good, whatever the progress is. I do think though there is a significant change though in the integrated GPU with those chips.
Okay, so that's now using RDNA 2 instead of Vega graphics. So isn't that the same architecture that the new fabled PS5 and Xbox Series X use?
Yes.
And that's good, isn't it?
It is good, but I wouldn't start expecting our integrated laptop GPUs to be offering quite the same performance as one of those consoles. But
assuming you can get one.
Assuming you can get one. The top model, I think that's going to be a Radeon RX 6850M XT. Such a mouthful, isn't it?
Oh, they do.
That apparently has more compute units than the PS5, so possibly the top end might approach it. But of course, bear in mind, console titles are very tightly optimized for the hardware. So,
yeah.
I mean, I've been trying this recently. I've been playing Forza 5 on my Xbox One X,
right?
Not Series X, One X, and also on my gaming PC, which is far more powerful. And I can't really tell the difference. Maybe I'm just old and blind, but
well, you are that, but that doesn't mean there isn't not a difference. I'm a bit gutted about gaming actually at the moment because over the break, I promised myself I'd spend some time doing some Elite Dangerous, which is a space simulator I love or loved over the break on my new MacBook. Guess what?
What?
So Frontier Developments, who developed the game, stopped support for it in 2018, and I didn't even know. So, sorry, stopped support for Mac OS.
Right. That's how into gaming you are. You're down with it. Only a short period of time can pass, maybe 3 years or so before you're.
To be fair, I'm a busy person, and gaming is not a big part of my life. So, I was quite excited about it, and then so I was a bit disappointed about that. So I tried downloading some old games from actually 20 years ago that say they work on Mac, and they wouldn't start.
Yeah.
So it was futile. In the end, I ended up playing Uno.
I got my Raspberry Pi 400 out and turned it into an Amiga and played some old Amiga games.
Awesome.
And it's been that's been very enjoyable. Anyway, we're digressing.
You started it.
We've spoken about integrated GPUs. So this is a graphics card that's part of the CPU.
Yeah.
But AMD is also making dedicated GPUs for laptops, just like nVidia does. and they've got a new 6000M range of notebook dedicated GPUs. So where they specifically expanded is the lower end. So this is good news for gamers on a budget.
Yeah.
Because there'll be more choice.
And these use the RDNA 2 architecture as well.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, that's great.
And there's an S range as well for thin and lights, which is supposedly more power efficient but still able to game. So be interesting again to see that in the flesh, so to speak.
I might get one and then in 3 years' time try out a game on it.
Yeah. There's also the desktop CPUs. Let's give them a mention because this is really, I mean, all of these other things have been kind of updates to existing products, but AMD hasn't released them yet, but we're expecting second half of 2022 that we're going to get Ryzen 7000 desktop CPUs. And this is going to be a new architecture called Zen 4. And that will be on a TSMC's 5 nanometer process, the same as Apple Silicon is.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say we're quite excited about that, aren't we? Expecting some big things.
That'll be, if they're changing the process size, there should be a big performance jump. And I'm interested to see whether they're going to go down the big little route as well.
Yeah, we'll watch that. Maybe that's something we will get a sample machine in and do some testing on. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I do like AMD. And of course, your other option in dedicated laptop GPUs is nVidia.
Yes, that just comes straight off the tongue, doesn't it? You think of it, Intel, AMD, nVidia.
I just got to take some water from my Constant Geekery mug.
Oh, do such things exist? You can see these if you're not watching us on YouTube. You can see these by visiting us on youtube.com/The Constant Geekery podcast. That's the URL. So very nice.
Good. Sorry, I digress there.
Notebook dedicated GPUs from nVidia. So mobile versions of the 3080 Ti and the 3070 Ti, which are quite powerful. They're saying it should deliver 1440p gaming at 100 and 120 frames per second.
That'd be pretty good. So I can see that working well. A lot of gaming laptops have, still 1080p panels because people want to be able to play at high resolution. So to have a 1440p panel, higher resolution and high refresh rate. Yeah, that could be good. Pretty good. So is it Ti or Ti? I've heard them say Ti before, but I'm not going to play that game. It's Ti, isn't it?
Ti.
It's got to be. It's like GTI. You used to get on the back of your Golf.
GTI. Do you know what GTI stands for?
Go on.
Got twit inside. Normally based on the driving profile of most GTI drivers.
Oh.
I have been a GTI driver in my time.
I was going to say.
So, but most of them are driven by twits.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah. Watch it.
It's like saying that all Volvos are driven by old men. Which car are you taking out later, Pete?
Well, I'm not now because I forgot the key. But he's trying to infer that I'm old, which of course I am.
I think there might be a key on my desk for that car.
Nuts.
Moving on. These new mobile chips, they're talking about 10 to 20% improvement on the non-TI part with the same number. And actually, laptops might be a gamer's best friend at the minute because of those high prices. I mean, even on the used market, as we said, you can't get GPUs sensible money unless you manage to get the steal that I did with my Quadro workstation card.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like a 2070 Super, so you can game on it.
Yeah. Well, right.
Well, I know we did that on the channel before.
Okay.
I got a brand new sealed one for half the retail price.
Oh, I remember now. Yeah. Sorry, I've slept since then.
Yeah.
And I am old.
You are old. Of course, there was an announcement from nVidia of a new graphics card.
Yes, they've added 10 to it.
Have they?
Yeah, so it's a 3090 instead of a 3080.
I thought there always was a 3090.
Sorry, it's an RTX 3090.
No, I can't keep up with any of this. RTX, yeah, of course it
RTX 3090 Ti.
It's pointless talking about it, though, isn't it?
Well, it's going to be unobtainium, isn't it?
Yeah, you won't be able to get one, so don't worry about that. And if you could get one, you'll need a small mortgage to buy it.
Yeah, and a power station the size of Hinkley Point.
And a lot of the time, you see gamers rushing out to buy these incredibly powerful gaming cards, and then they're running it through a monitor that can't display the frame rates.
It's crazy, isn't it?
So, honestly, if you're running your gaming machine on a 1080p,
It's like golfers that are really atrocious who go out and buy really expensive, good golf clubs. Actually, it's nothing like that at all, but I just had to say that. So,
right, here's the bit I'm relatively excited about.
come on, let's hear your excitement.
You remember we reported on Qualcomm's acquisition of nVidia?
Yes.
nVidia being the company that was formed by ex-Apple Silicon engineers,
Yes.
in part,
Yes.
not just from Apple. Well, they have released a new laptop chip. So this is the Snapdragon 8CX Generation 3. They're saying an 85% jump in CPU and 60% jump on GPU
Yeah, but compared to what?
compared to the previous Snapdragon laptop chip.
Right.
So what that means is it's now at a usable level.
Oh, I was going to say, because so what?
No, that's not the exciting thing. And there are no products being announced that at CES anyway that use that particular chip. But what they did say is that they're expecting a release from the nVidia team in 2023, and their quote is that it will set the performance benchmark for Windows PCs.
Will it though?
Well, it's a bold claim.
Yeah.
If they're doing what I think they're doing, which is bringing Apple Silicon type ARM computing to the PC.
That I can right now. I understand why you might be excited about that.
Yeah. And when I've said this before on the channel, there's always detractors who say there's no way Qualcomm can do this and blah, 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 Qualcomm this, that, and look into history. Yeah, that's not relevant. They bought nVidia. They've got the guys who made the original M1.
Also, these are probably the same people that 5 years ago would have said there's no way Apple would make their own silicon.
Well, yeah.
Things change, folks.
Yeah.
Stuff happens.
Look, this will be absolutely brilliant for everybody. Whether you're a Mac or a PC fan, it's great news because, again, competition.
Yeah, competition is good for progress.
Yes.
Otherwise, things stagnate.
And of course, Apple weren't at CES, apart from they featured on Intel's benchmark slides, I believe.
Yes, claiming that Alder Lake H will be more powerful than the latest M1 chips.
Great. Well, that's great. I think they're saying, I guess they're referring to the M1 Pro, aren't they? The 10 core.
Probably. We'll have to wait and see.
I mean, that's not really such a bold claim because some of AMD's mobile CPUs ain't far off.
Exactly.
So
I think the real test will not be whether they're more powerful. It's how long will they be more powerful for? Because it's like this has been on for at least 3 or 4 hours without being plugged into anything. I've still got, what have I got here? 84% battery. If I had a typical Intel laptop, I'd probably be needing to plug it in 10 minutes after starting it. So they might be more powerful for 1 minute and then die. Who knows?
I have to say, I haven't used my Intel notebook for a while, my Razer Blade, and I fired it up over the break, and I was astonished at how quick the battery went down. It's amazing how fast you get used to.
You get conditioned, don't you,
Yeah.
for certain battery lengths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, maybe they will be able to improve it. I mean, it's got to be better if they're using a big. LITTLE type architecture.
Yeah.
So, will it be as good as M1? Probably not.
The fact they've not talked about battery life suggests to me that it's not at the same level, but we'll have to wait and see.
So, you can expect Intel to come out with a carefully curated set of benchmarks and slides when the time comes. It seems nVidia were also aiming at Apple, which is probably justly deserved, seeing as Apple were making all sorts of bold claims about their new GPUs.
So what were they saying?
So they're saying the RTX Studio branded computers will offer 7 times the GPU performance as the M1 Max.
That's quite a jump. But with what GPU core?
Well, we don't know. I don't have that information in my notes. I've obviously lacked the sufficient depth of research there.
That's okay. You've done all the research this week, but it kind of misses the point, doesn't it? To a large degree, M1 is about optimization rather than just raw performance.
Yeah.
At the top end.
And I know people get fed up with us talking about video editing and in general on YouTube, but that's where these optimizations really stand out, because in each of these M1 Max machines, you've got 2 encoders for H.264, H.265 plus 2 encoders for ProRes.
Yeah.
If your workflow includes those things, then the performance will be completely different. So if we're talking about raw compute performance, well, the M1 Max doesn't even get up to the levels of the current nVidia cards. So, but in the real world, actually, it does punch above its weight.
Yes. It's much like me with girls.
It's just as a point, you can't really compare raw compute performance on a traditional GPU versus the M1 GPUs because they work in a slightly different way. So raw compute performance doesn't paint the whole picture.
No, exactly.
My stomach is rumbling like anything, so if you can hear that on the microphone, I do apologise.
And we haven't even got to our second main topic yet.
So
which we will come to in a second, but
that's a second. Let's come to it.
Well, all I was going to say before we move on to that is there's lots of expectation for Apple this year as well, isn't there? Even though they weren't at CES.
Yeah.
But that's probably for another episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll indeed cover that.
So what is our second main topic again, just to remind the listeners?
So this is the retro games pricing scam. Now let me kick this off by saying that last year, a copy of Super Mario Brothers, in its box, still sealed, sold at auction for $2 million. Yes, you heard that correct. $2 million for a copy of Super Mario Brothers. And the problem that this has in the industry is it's got a knock-on effect. So you've got a knock-on effect for all used video games and old consoles. They're all shooting up in value. And if you're into retro video gaming and you want one of those things, then that's a problem. If, like me, you had some of those things and you sold them in the last couple of years, then
That's
it's
also a problem. You
But
could
there
have
we go.
retired.
I could have done.
Instead, you're stuck here making podcasts with me.
That's all right.
So why did it fetch so much then?
Okay, well, it was a pristine, boxed, cellophane wrapped example.
Yeah, so never seen the light of day since it was made.
Yeah, and never underestimate the price that people will put on nostalgia. Of course, you can't open it or play it
Ever
because
Well, you could.
it won't be worth anything.
But it would defeat the object. But I suppose if you're buying it because you're truly a games enthusiast, then you might want to play it one day just to say you have, because I'm sure these are all being snapped up by game enthusiasts. But I'm sure we can dig into that in a bit more in a moment.
Let's challenge that. We'll dig into that. The other reason why it fetched that much is because it had a rating of 9.8 from an organisation called WATA, W-A-T-A.
WATA Games. Yeah. Now, they are a grading company. Or a grading standards company. So just to explain what that is, and this is by no means exclusive to the game industry. You have grading companies for all sorts of things, but basically what you do is you send in your game in its cellophane wrapper and all that kind of stuff. You pay WATA a fee, and then WATA will use one of their experts to assess the quality of that item, including the quality of the wrap, whether it's got any imperfections, marks, little dings and holes in the cellophane. They'll give it a score, so 9.8, and then they will put it in a nice plastic display case for you and basically seal it with that score on it. It's all very, very nice. And basically that fee that you get increases the value of that game.
Yeah. So this it's the same thing that you have for comic books and baseball cards, those kind of things. Yeah, people
Anything
want
collectible.
they want a standard and they want consistent scoring. And so WATA aims to provide this. So they got the score, but they also then rate the quality of the cellophane packaging. So that's like A+, A++, I think is the best that you can get. So I think that example, the 2 million, was a 9.8/A++, which is basically as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
It looks pristine. Now, if you send in your game, there's a set fee that you pay WATA, and then you can pay them a bit more if you want it a bit faster. And then you can pay them a bit more if you want to jump the queue even higher. So sort of have a couple of levels of queue jumping, which goes against every fibre of my British person. But
queue jumping.
yeah. I've looked at the reviews, though, and a lot of people who are saying they're going for the top options, they've paid all this extra money for the super fast turnaround, are not getting it. So they're obviously inundated and they're unable to actually deliver these turnaround times. But another issue that you get is that the fees they publish are for games that are expected it to be valued at under $1,000.
Right.
If your game is worth more than $1,000, then they'll start charging a scaling fee on top of that. Up
That's
to the
percentage.
point. Yeah, it does get up to 2% for the more expensive games.
So hold the phone. 2%. So if that Super Mario game sold for $2 million,
well, they won't have made 2% of $2 million, but what they'll do is they'll assess the value. If you now send in a copy of Super Mario that's mint, they'll look at the pricing history and they'll say, okay, well, we think it's worth this, and therefore the fee that we're going to charge you is 2% of whatever. So say they say it's worth $500,000, they'll charge you 2% of that.
wow.
So it costs a lot of money anyway to get the game in the water cases. And a lot of people are getting this done and then trying to sell them on eBay. But of course, then the price has to cover the water fees and all the rest of it. So you're already into hundreds of dollars on even a very ordinary title because they've had to pay these fees. But how else do you do it? You've got to have somebody who's providing a grade, a consistent score. If it is consistent.
Yeah. And there's a problem with that.
It doesn't always seem to be consistent.
And the reason for that is because humans are involved.
Yeah.
And humans aren't consistent. There's a degree of subjectivity to this. And
there is. And some would claim more than that something nefarious is going on. In fact, some are claiming that the market is being manipulated by a few individuals.
yes.
So we're going to be very cautious about how we present this story to you today because we don't want to get sued. I have been looking at this for a while and trying to make sense of it. And then a YouTuber by the name of Karl Jobst, he released a video about this. And it's worth watching. So we're going to link it in the description. So it's about an hour long. But
it is worth watching.
It is.
It might actually make you angry. So just be careful about that.
Yeah. And Karl has done his research and everything else. But for us, we're going to just talk in hypotheticals.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about it from if we wanted to do something like this?
Yeah. So suppose that we're sat there one day, Pete, thinking, do you know what? We'd like to make an awful lot of money off of video games.
Mm-hmm.
How do we go about that? Well, we'd probably start by making sure we've got plenty of stock ourselves before the price increases.
Yeah, so before the demand
So
is there.
if there was some evidence of collusion or manipulation or something, then there would probably be somebody out there buying up large quantities of boxed, sealed games.
Yeah, that would be the case, because if you knew you were going to do that, you'd want to make sure you had them first.
Yeah, and other people in the general retro gaming collectible sphere would have noticed that was happening and would be reporting on it on many web forums.
Yeah, because it's a tight-knit community, isn't it? So, yeah, you'd expect that to be happening.
Obviously, we're talking hypotheticals. So can't say whether that has or hasn't happened.
No, but it is a tight-knit community, so if it were to happen, you would expect them to pick up on it.
You certainly would.
Yeah.
So here we are. We've got our warehouse now full of our.
We haven't.
We
but
have
hypothetically. This is a thought experiment.
Suppose we got a whole bunch of these games, right? So the next thing we need to do, there is a grading company out there already.
Yeah, isn't it VGA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not in control of that. So what we're going to do is start a new grading company. Hypothetically, we'll find somebody to front it for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll try and be kind of private about it, but we'll start this grading company, and we'll let it gather a small amount of momentum, and then what we'll do is maybe grade one of our own games, say a copy of Super Mario Brothers or something like that, just for example. Say
yeah. Okay. Something we've got. Yeah.
And what we then do is, so we've got it graded, and it's got a perfect grade and looks good and all the rest of it. So what we next need to do is put it up for auction. So what would be really helpful here to us is if we own the auction house that puts it up for auction.
Oh, okay. So hypothetically, we set up our own auction house, or if we happen to have one already, we might use that. And then we'd sell our own game through our own auction house.
Yeah. And to make sure that it gets a good price, what we could do is buy our own game.
Is that allowed?
Well, I would question the...
I mean, hypothetically.
Hypothetically, people have got away with doing that in the past. So,
Okay. All right. Okay.
is there any rule on it? I don't know.
Okay.
Let's say we do that anyway. We're going to buy our own copy of Super Mario, and we're going to pay, let's hypothetically say, $100,000 for it.
Or it might be pounds, because if we were doing this,
It'd be a pounds, wouldn't it? So let's
absolutely.
let's say 100.
Because obviously this is hypothetical. So
Obviously.
it would be in this country, and obviously we would buy that in good old sterling.
So 100,000 imperial credits of the realm. And next, what we'll then do is we'll start a bit of a PR offensive.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. What to say about how much this game's fetched?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to call in experts from the grading company.
The ones with lots of experience.
Yes, from the grading company that we helped
Hypothetically
helped to start.
Right, okay.
We'll get those guys in, and what they'll do is they'll talk about how the market for used games is ready to explode. It's massively undervalued, and it's only a matter of time before we're going to see a $1 million pound.
So
copy of Mario.
presumably that's so that genuine game collectors out there who've been doing it for years can see the value of this and get the games they've cherished to make sure they've got them in their collection.
Absolutely. It's all about the genuine fans.
Yeah.
But also as a side benefit to that, which is obviously not our focus whatsoever, as a side benefit to that, all sorts of people who like making money might sort of notice the waving flag of, oh, look, stuff here is going up in value very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that being a very much a side benefit to our altruistic hypothetical venture.
If this carries on much longer, we're going to have to rename the podcast to The Constant Sarcasm. But
I think we need to keep going on this one.
Okay, all right. So we've got the sale, we've got the 100,000, and everyone's reeling from this. How could it possibly be worth this much money? And now we've got the PR publicity stunt doing its thing, and the auction house itself. We could get that to do some publicity. We've sold this video game, and the auction experts can talk about how they've got more available. Can talk about how it was worth the money, and prices are going up, and that they've got more available.
Oh, yeah. Assuming we have,
assuming there is more available.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is the journalists are going to cover the story, and they probably won't fact check it deep enough because they're looking for filler content.
Yeah. And there's click farms out there that will just auto-generate it pretty much.
Yeah, so it gets repeated without anybody actually checking the facts.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, okay.
So you just end up with this propagation of the fact that the video game market is exploding, and
so
people can see
that
and get
theory
excited.
that if you say something enough, people begin to believe it.
Yeah. It's misinformation. It's the product of the modern society in which we live. A lot of the things that you read online just simply aren't true.
Yeah. So we hypothetically, if we did this, we want to make sure that didn't happen. So we'd obviously want to just be careful of that. But
of course.
I tell you what though, what we would probably want to do as well is maybe get some kind of entertainment show involved,
like maybe a tie-in with a TV show.
Yeah, that's what I'm sort of thinking. Someone who's perhaps finding things and then working out what those things might cost by calling in some kind of expert.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, who could we use for that?
Well, we could then use one of the experts at the grading company.
Oh, that's brilliant! Yeah, because they know what they're talking about, don't they? And they're only there for grading.
And if the customer who's having their thing assessed by the expert on the TV happens to know the expert and be part of the same group of people, that won't show on the TV, so that'll be okay, hypothetically speaking.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't want there to be any suggestion that it was any kind of way, any kind of collusion going on.
No. And in fact, what we would do is we hypothetically, we would go out publicly stating how employees of the grading company absolutely cannot buy their own games and grade their own games and things like that.
No, because that would be, I believe the term is a conflict of interests.
So what we'll do is we'll make sure that those who are doing that within our grading company do it quietly.
By pure coincidence.
Yeah. And
do you know what one of my favourite songs is? That I can't remember who sings it, but it's that Old Carolina song. That's a really good song, that one.
I'm not getting the reference.
It's a nice collection of songs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully you get the gist of what we're suggesting here, and if you want the more direct version,
go and watch the video. Karl's video is very good.
Is this kind of thing really going on? Could it be the case that a small number of people can manipulate a global market in this way?
Yes.
Yeah, that is the answer.
It can be done. It's happened before. There's been a number of bubbles. I think the first recorded one was with tulip bulbs back in the 1600s. So a bubble happens really when people are buying something, not because they want to use it, but because they see it as an investment that they can sell on to the next person who wants to buy it. So it's all about perceived value as opposed to actual value.
Yeah.
So a tulip bulb gives you a flower, but if someone is convinced that tulip bulbs are going to keep going up in price, then they'll buy it in the hope that at some point they can sell it to someone for more than they've bought it from, and that person's buying it so that they can subsequently hope that they can sell it on. And this goes on for a long time until the bubble bursts and the most recent investors are the ones left holding the can, the ones losing out.
Yeah, it's a classic pump and dump strategy. Pump the price up, dump it, run away with the profits. I think Karl actually, he features the tulip explanation in his video. Yeah, it's not just Karl's video we've watched, by the way, and you have done plenty of our own research on this to verify what he's saying appears to have the scent of authenticity around it. It certainly looks like this is actually going on. And
the thing is, amongst all the internet hubbub of noise these days, there are certain places where you can check for fact. In the UK, we have Companies House where you can check limited company information and filings, and in the US, I believe it's the SEC has a similar function in certain areas. So you can look and see hard facts there, aside from all the noise and the pure coincidences that may be going on.
So let's move away from what's actually happening. So there is this big scam, and prices of video games are massively inflated. What is the net effect? Does it concern us? We're not collectors of video games. I think it's a sad situation because those old games, there's a lot of nostalgia around. The people that were playing those games when they first came out are now of the age where they've got the money and they can turn this into a collectible
hobby
thing. But there are lots of people that would appreciate these old retro games. As I mentioned earlier, I was doing some emulation on the Raspberry Pi, playing Amiga games. They still stand up today as good games.
Playable.
Great
Definitely.
fun.
Yeah.
So it's sad. It's sad because if you want to have the real experience, I mean, of course, you can go and emulate any of these games. Nintendo are not happy about that because it's quite difficult to get hold of official Nintendo ROMs, if it's even possible at all. But you can emulate these things. But some people, they want the real experience. They want to have a console. They want to put a cartridge in. They even want an old CRT television to play it on.
Yeah.
And these things are now just being priced out of the market because the collectors are taking over. And, I've seen these photos of collections where you've got floor-to-ceiling, wall-to-wall video games that are just there as... Do they get played?
No. In actual fact... one of the Toy Story films, I think it was the second one, kind of made a comment on this concept of collecting things and never playing with them, just keeping them perfect in their box, and how sad that is, really.
It is. Unless you've got a copy of Super Mario Brothers still in its seal, I would strongly suggest that you sell it. So lots of people now trying to cash in on eBay, of course, because they see this, so they think every grotty video game in their collection is now worth thousands. And so the prices for video games
Just
just
rocket.
nonsense. It really is crazy. So the other day, you know, we've been doing some renovation work at our house.
I think you mentioned it once. Yeah.
So I was pulling off some skirting board, and I found a copy of a Game Boy game that had slipped under,
Really?
under the skirting board. So it was behind the skirting board in the wall.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. So I'm, I could be rich.
What was it?
Nintendogs.
I think I know why that ended up in the wall, but go on.
I cleaned it off and gave it to my boys in case they wanted to have a go with it. And I think Ben spent about 5 minutes on it, and then it's been put away, hasn't it, Tom? Yeah. So if anybody wants a copy of Nintendogs,
It's yours for £20,000.
yeah, I'll send it to Wata and we'll get it sorted out. It's not just eBay though, is it? It's
Game dealers.
game dealers. Yeah.
So there was the example of crazy prices being charged for what were fundamentally rubbish games. The one that made me chuckle the most was the 9.8 for Atari's version of E.T., which has been voted the worst game in history. In actual fact, they went into landfill, didn't they?
They literally took a truck, dug a hole in the ground,
Dumped them in there. So somewhere there is literally treasure buried in the
Oh
ground.
no,
at the
they dug
moment.
it. Some guy dug it up. Didn't he? There's a documentary about it.
Really?
Yeah, it's fascinating. He digs up old ET cartridges.
Okay.
It's-
Wow.
Anyway,
Wow.
a
Right.
terrible game. Trying to cash in on a movie franchise, and I'm sure I've seen that, going for north of 10,000, and I don't understand.
If you want to spend £10,000 on a really bad game, I can probably code you one in an afternoon.
Actually, they don't want the game, do they? They just want the box. We'll make you a box, wrap it in cellophane, and
Actually, that's a really interesting point. How would you know if there wasn't a cartridge in it? Just put a lump of plastic in it to get the weight right
wow.
and wrap it in cellophane.
Oh dear. Well, that's
The plot could thicken. We're going to get visited by Men in Black next, aren't we?
yeah, probably. So it gets even worse, though, I'm afraid, folks, because now there's these companies popping up who are selling shares in video games.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll buy a game and then you can have a share of that game. So a couple of examples that I've seen them advertising. A 9.8 A-grade seal copy of Halo for the
Okay.
original Xbox.
Yeah.
And that sold for $301,000. Dollars. $301,000 for a copy of Halo.
We don't have broken air on the podcast, so I'm going to have to keep talking. But if it wasn't for the fact this was a podcast, I would be speechless right now.
I can almost understand, a game from the 1980s
Yeah.
fetching money if it's mint and in box, but how old is that? Well, here's another example. That same company is now selling shares in a 9.8 A++ rated
Yeah.
2012 Xbox 360 copy of Minecraft.
What?
Minecraft,
What?
possibly the most produced game of the last decade. I mean, it's everywhere. So you can't imagine that there's a shortage of copies of Minecraft for the Xbox 360 that are still in their box and still sealed.
I'm flabbergasted.
And they're selling shares in this. So $1 a share, and they're issuing 27,800 shares. So that's what they think it's worth. $27,800 for a 10-year-old copy of Minecraft.
Can I just say your maths is excellent to be able to do that on the fly? $1, 27,800. Amazing. Very impressive.
Thank you. It's,
Okay.
it is a skill. So it looks and smells like a pump and dump. And thinking of things that smells like a dump, our office here, which has been empty for a while, we come in today and something's gone wrong somewhere because the toilets are smelling real bad.
Yeah, it's not the sort of bubble you want, is it?
It's wasn't what we were hoping for.
No.
So, the thing is, if it looks like a dump and it smells like a dump, then it probably is one.
Yeah.
So, what's going to happen?
Well, the people who started things off are going to make a truckload of money. They're going to make a fortune. And along the way, people are jumping on the bandwagon and they will make big profits. And there are going to be some genuine game collectors out there who choose to sell their games, and they're free to do so. And for which this is going to be a life-changing amount of money if they sell it. So that's great. But with all bubbles, there comes a point where it pops. And at that point, the prices will crash back down to sensible levels. Of course, we don't know what sensible levels are now because hypothetically, if we were doing this, we'd probably get rid of any independent websites that give you the normal price for a game, hypothetically, wouldn't we? We'd buy those and shut those down, hypothetically.
Hypothetically. Yeah.
So, but the prices will drop. And what will happen is the people that invested last will be left holding the can. So they're going to put in, £2 million, £3 million for a couple of dollars for a copy of Mario or whatever it might be. The price is going to crash and they're going to end up with a sealed box that's worth nothing or very little compared to what it was worth. They're going to lose their money.
That's it. And there's a key point here, and that is that the market is being controlled. These things are not as rare as they're being made out to be. Quite a few of these Super Mario Brothers games have gone to auction, and not all of them have done this well. There's quite a variety of pricing, actually. And, new old stock stuff, that's not uncommon. Nintendo continues to sell titles for the entire length of the console's life. So they'll produce these things and lots of people already have the game. So it stands to reason that there will be some of these things out there. Something my dad said to me many years ago, and it's kind of stuck with me, is that if one person is making massive gains, many others have to lose.
That's very true.
And yeah, it does suck. It does suck.
It's not nice. It's greed, and it's ruining. Greed is the root of all sorts of problems, and it's ruining it for many.
It is. Anyway, let's close that one off. I just wanted to talk about another video game scam.
Oh, what's that?
Just very briefly, when we were away last week, my son Ben, he wanted to buy an Xbox controller.
Okay.
Because you can use them with your gaming PC, you know what I mean, the wireless Xbox controller. So we went into a game store that's called Game in the UK.
Yeah.
And quite a big store, and they had an array of controllers and colours and different things. So he selected the one he wanted. He was well excited.
Yeah.
I went to the till.
Yeah.
They don't have that one.
What?
No. All the boxes are out, but they don't have that one. In fact, they didn't have any controllers. And what he got told was they're all out of stock, and they are indeed out of stock everywhere. I don't know why, but you can't get an Xbox controller for love nor money, it would seem.
They're being graded by...
Possibly.
Yeah.
He said it's Microsoft Pay for the advertising. So Microsoft obviously have a policy of keeping empty boxes on the shelves to make it look good. But I think that's very counterintuitive, because what an awful customer experience for a 14-year-old who's saved up the money himself from his pocket money to go and buy what is not a cheap item.
Shame on you, Microsoft.
And Game. You shouldn't have empty boxes out on the shelves.
It's just misleading.
But I'm finding this a lot in stores these days. Retail stores. We've talked about this before, but they're going downhill fast, aren't they? If they're just going to put out empty boxes of stuff they haven't got.
Yeah. Unless they're sealed and mint.
Here's another experience as well. I fired up my Xbox and I was toying with the idea.
He literally fired it up. His Xbox is so old it's coal powered.
I have the One X, Pete, which was and still is a very good console.
I've got a 360.
It's
a black one. It's one of the newer ones that doesn't have the red ring of death problem.
Okay, good for you. So anyway, I was thinking about joining the Game Pass Ultimate. So for £11 a month, you get access to a whole bunch of games, which includes things that I actually want to play. A few things I actually want to play, and a whole lot of things I don't. But nonetheless, it's worth it. Particularly as you can also play those same games then on your PC, and it syncs up the save games. So I can play on the Xbox in my lounge, play on the PC in my office,
That
wherever.
sounds very civilized.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'll maybe give that a go. And I'm looking into it, and I noticed then that you can pay for the new Xbox also on a monthly plan that includes the Game Pass Ultimate.
Ooh.
So I'm thinking to myself, I added it up, and the price of doing it over the monthly contract comes to less than the price of the new console and buying Game Pass separately. So it's a deal,
Yeah.
and it's 0%.
Right.
So I thought, well, I may as well do that because I can sell my One X, which basically covers the cost of that, and great, nice and easy. So you go from the Microsoft website to a retailer site, and I actually found a retailer who had some Xbox Series X. I must have just lucked out and got in on the right day or whatever. So I went through and did an order, and it takes you through to a company called Klarna.
Okay, I've heard of them.
Which is a finance company. So I thought, I don't really know who Klarna are, but I guess if Microsoft are recommending it, then it's okay, and it's 0%, so, and it's cheaper, so why wouldn't you? So I submitted the application, and it came back instantly with a decline.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute. I don't have any negative credit on my file. I've got a good credit score. I know what my score is because I get emailed it every week. I earn a reasonable amount of money. I don't have debt.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have thought I was an ideal risk-free customer. But no, a straight decline just like that. And when I did some research afterwards, I found that they hadn't even checked my credit file.
Okay. So how did they make the decision?
No idea. But I wonder how many people have tried to buy the new Xbox and have been declined. I'd be interested to know if anyone else has experienced that.
I wonder if anyone's managed to buy one. But then why would you advertise it?
Well, I wondered if it is the same thing that we just spoke about. Microsoft make it appear like there is some, but then you go through this process and get a credit decline instead of it's not in stock. Could it be?
Wow.
That's a bit of a long shot, I think. But it was an odd experience. I was very surprised by it.
That is really weird. That is really weird.
Yeah. And yeah, very strange.
Very odd.
Anyway, how long have we been going for, Tom, on our podcast this week? I feel like it's been quite a long one. An hour-ish. Okay.
An hour-ish. Okay. Well,
so I think we can then finish off with
the Rumour Mill. Now, some of you might be getting excited because at the end of season 2, I said that exciting new things were coming for season 3. And in my head, they were, but I've kind of only partially executed those. So what I've got for you this week is the lyrics to the new Rumour Mill jingle, but no music.
Can I, on bended knee, plead with you to not sing?
I'm not going to sing it this week.
What do you mean this week?
Well, what I'm hoping is either I will actually get some time to put my own music to it, or maybe one of our subscribers or listeners will submit something and then I might sing it.
Good Lord.
Okay, so would you like to hear the lyrics?
Really not. I can't tell you how much I don't want this to happen.
Okay.
I'm in this situation at the moment where I feel my stress levels going up.
I'm not going to sing it this week.
No, but the fact that you might sing it in the future is now hanging over me like the sword of Damocles.
If I do, what I promise is I won't do it live on the podcast. I'll pre-record it first so I can get the vocalizer on it. So I'll hit the notes.
You can auto-tune it.
I'll get Kylie's producer in to sort that out for me.
Okay, go on. Yeah, just let's do it.
You ready? Okay.
I'm not ready, but go on.
Okay. So if you have a musical leaning, and I am looking for something quite tuneful here, so if you make a note of these lyrics and see if you can come up with something singer-songwriter style.
I'm just going to watch Tom because I think I'll be able to see as he just dies a little inside. Whilst you do this.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite news, but it's sure to thrill. We've got stuff that we want to spill. Dave will hate this jingle, as you know he will. Don't look now, it's the Rumour Mill.
Actually, that wasn't that bad.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah. You've missed your vocation in life, clearly, Pete.
So That's the lyrics. I have a tune in my head, but I have a feeling that Disney might sue me if I use it. So I do need a song or a theme tune.
I'm quite good with music and stuff.
Well, you can have a go if you like.
No, I don't like. I'm not going to.
We could have a different one each week. How about that? And I could sing it every week. Or I could get guest singers in to sing it. There's all sorts of permutations for this. Please suggest what you'd like to see.
I just feel like now that I've revealed my weakness, my soft underbelly, that people will simply want to see me suffer.
You're going to go, as soon as this podcast release, your email is going to... What's your email address for the...
I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, what is it? Is it podcast?
Struggling to remember now.
.com?
Well, I don't know. Couldn't say for sure.
You're going to open it, you're going to go, oh no, 50 unread emails. I never get that many.
What do you mean? I dream of days when I have only 50 unread emails.
Yeah, but most of them are from people asking you to review earbuds of some kind or another, aren't they?
I do get quite a lot of them.
I do need some new earbuds, actually. So if there's any decent ones out there that don't fall out your ears, let me know. I'm happy to review them.
Well, I'm just going to give a shout out to the Edifier NeoBuds Pro.
I would love to review a pair of those because they do look good and I've seen you using them.
But we've already had them on the channel, Pete. So.
Yeah, but I'd love some. Anyway, the Rumour Mill. What have we got?
Well, I found a rumour about LG going to supply the new panels for the upcoming iPads, OLED panels no less. This was reported by MacRumors.com. And the first thing I thought about that was it reminded me of the days when Retina screens first became a thing.
Yeah.
And both LG and Samsung were commissioned to make those screens. And I had a couple made by LG.
And how did they work out for you?
Not well.
No.
They both had issues and they both went back. So that was my natural reaction. I know LG make good stuff. Yeah. But OLED, I mean, we've gone down this road of mini LED with the iPad Pro.
Yeah, it does seem odd, doesn't it?
Well, does it seem odd? OLED would have been a better choice, arguably.
How do you say?
Because it wouldn't have a shadow around the side of the screen.
Oh, yeah. What does have a shadow around the side of the screen?
Pro.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But only the more recent ones. Mine doesn't. Have you noticed? Mine doesn't.
I have noticed that.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
Although your laptop does. It's just
Hadn't noticed.
It's not as obvious.
Hadn't noticed. But there is more history with Apple and LG as well. Do you remember when Apple stopped selling the Thunderbolt display?
Vaguely.
And they said this LG monitor is what you want instead because we're not making them anymore.
Oh, yes, I know. Right, okay. I thought you said they'd stop selling the LG one because it is LG that makes them at the moment, isn't it?
But do you remember that they initially had problems?
With the shielding?
That's right. It interrupted your Wi-Fi signal.
Brilliant.
So, so that was quite good.
You're viewing it wrong.
Yes. Yeah. You're Wi-Fiing wrong.
Well, I don't know whether this is... I don't know how believable this is. Well, I mean, we're going to grade it because it's the rumour mill, but apparently LG is expanding its plan in South Korea. OLED screens, will we see those this year? No, I don't think so. If it's expanding its plan, then that suggests next year or 2024.
Yep. So I'm going to make this amber, but only in terms of time frame. I think it will happen.
I'm going to agree with you. I think it makes perfect sense to put OLED displays in iPads.
Yeah, you've got to have something to sell the next iPad with.
Yeah, I wonder whether the Pros might keep the mini LED, but we'll see.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, so we're both saying amber on that. The other rumour that I found is from Macworld, and they're talking about the Apple Spring event.
Yes, March the 28th.
That's what they're saying.
Interesting.
They've got all sorts of rationale for why it'll be the 28th of March. No doubt Apple are looking at that and they'll make it a different date just to
mess with us.
Yeah. So,
if Apple had made the pyramids, they would have just changed the dimensions at the last minute so they didn't have so many coincidences just to mess with us.
Probably true. Sorry, not my microphone there. Would you folks out there like to see a live show?
Of course you would.
For the Apple Spring event. They've got a big old list of releases here. Macworld are suggesting and this is not their list of, we might see this stuff as well. They think we're getting new iPhone SE, a revised iPad Air with the A15 chip, AirPods Pro, which finds its way onto every one of these lists, the larger iMac, and a Mac Mini Pro. They're thinking we're getting all of that at the spring event.
That's a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if that splits into 2 events. For reasons I can't. I'm exhausted to go into now after that retro gaming thing. But it's going to be 2 events, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, they don't usually do iPhones with Macs and things. But who knows? Apple changes the rules because they like to keep everyone on their toes.
Yeah.
Are we going to see? So first of all, will there be an event March, April time? Yeah. I'd say that's a green.
Yeah.
Will it be the 28th of March? Well, who knows?
Amber.
Will we see all of those things? I think red on that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see all of them.
Maybe some of those things.
I don't think AirPod Pros exist.
No. So spring, quite often an iPad event. They have kind of done a lot of iPad stuff of late. Does the iPad Air need an A15 chip? It's not that much faster, is it?
I don't know.
Is it going to make a difference? I mean, putting an M1 chip in an iPad didn't make a job of difference.
I was going to say, does making a difference matter anyway?
No. It's just a way of selling the things.
Larger iMac would be nice.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility.
And a Mac Mini Pro.
Mac Mini Pro, yeah.
Because they want to get those out of the way before the Apple transition's got to finish later this year, probably in the fall / autumn, depending on which side of the pond you're watching this on. But I would expect the last devices to be Mac Pros. So a larger iMac and a Mac Mini Pro would make sense.
Yeah, and we are expecting those to have the M1 Pro and M1 Max chips as their options.
Yeah, so definitely.
That's all good. That's the rumour mill. Did you have any other rumours?
I did. Not for this year, but next year, Apple Watch. Constant problem with Apple Watch is it does tend to need charging a lot. Apple have patented, apparently, the ability for the watch to charge based on the movement of your wrist and the heat of your skin. So a hybrid charging solution. You can still charge it in the normal way, but it keeps it topped up.
This is my sceptical, did Pete make this up face?
No, it comes from a reputable Apple Rumours website.
Does it?
Yeah.
Which one?
Pete Rumours.
It's not such a crazy idea, though. Obviously, we'll give Pete's rumour a red because that's not happening.
It's a good idea. It's such a good idea. Have devices that charge based on your movement.
If only someone had come up with that idea of maybe a watch that recharges itself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's where I got the idea from. I mean, it's not a stupid idea. You could even extend it to phones potentially. You've already got an accelerometer in there. How much would it? How hard can it be to strap a dynamo onto the accelerometer within this small package? I'm sure it's very straightforward.
I think the issue will be the amount of spinning required to generate enough power for a modern electronic device is probably far greater.
Depends what you're doing with your phone, doesn't it?
Or your wrist.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move on.
Okay.
So I think that's pretty much the end of the show. We did suggest that what we were going to do is at the start of each month, first show of the month, we would do as a live show. Since we said that, of course, COVID situation got a bit worse in the UK and we've had some government regulations. So whether or not...
concluded that, but we're going to have to wait and see, aren't we?
Yeah, so that may not happen in February. It might take until March for that to happen. Because our studio is in our office building, for our main business, and we have very strict rules, testing every morning and that kind of thing. So it's quite limited on. It limits us being able to set up a live show anyway. So I just wanted to let folks know that would be the case. But we'll certainly try and bring you a podcast. At the moment, our plan is to do weekly. We are changing slightly from next week. We're going to record on a Monday. Mm-hmm. So the podcast will be less fresh when you get it.
It will be
on the Tuesday.
Slightly stagnant.
Yeah, we'll record
like our toilets.
We'll record on a Monday and put it up on a Tuesday for you folks. So obviously in all the usual places, youtube.com/The Constant Geekery Podcast, or have a look on your listening platform of choice, whether that be Spotify or iTunes, if they still call it that, Google Podcasts. I think we're everywhere.
We are like a virus.
Mm. So hopefully you enjoyed our first show of the new year. Hopefully it hasn't been too long. Hopefully it's been entertaining and or useful in some way.
And if you've listened this long, thanks ever so much. Thanks for all our regular subscribers and listeners. It's nice to be back, isn't it?
It's very nice to be back. And we'll see you again soon for the Constant Geekery podcast.
Cheerio.